without hurting people's feelings when people get sensitive. KD says the other day his name should be discussed in the greatest of all time. I think the greatest player is Michael Jordan.
Shaquille O'Neal just went straight at Kevin Durant for laughing about Michael Jordan's era and his baseball chapter, and the way he did it hit hard. Everyone expected Shaq to react, but nobody thought he'd come in this strong. What started as a casual podcast moment quickly turned into a full-blown generational clash, and Shaq made it clear he wasn't letting this slide. Back in December 2025, LeBron James and Kevin Durant sat down for an episode of LeBron's Mind the Game podcast. The discussion drifted toward load management and how modern stars carefully manage their bodies throughout the season. They compared today's approach to earlier eras when players pushed through injuries without elite recovery tech, charter flights, or massive support staffs. The tone stayed relaxed at first, but then the conversation shifted. That's when Michael Jordan's career came up. LeBron and KD laughed about parts of the old-school NBA, including Jordan stepping away from basketball in the 1990s to pursue baseball. To them, it seemed like light commentary on how different the league used to operate. No malice, no shots, just conversation, at least from their point of view.
I want to give him a GOAT kind of status because I don't want to disrespect his talent because KD we've never seen that before, right? As a fan of basketball, to me, I've never seen a more skilled guy at that height. He could do everything that a guard can do. He shoots better than anybody ever, damn near except for Steph. And that part I think is GOAT status. But I'm saying, like, when y'all start doing championships and this, it gets weird.
But Shaq didn't hear it that way at all. Once the clips spread online, Shaquille O'Neal jumped in publicly, and his response was anything but casual. He felt the laughter crossed a line and came off as mockery. To Shaq, it sounded like two modern superstars brushing off the sacrifices made by the players who built the league before them. Shaq didn't mince words. He said LeBron and KD never lived through that era, and because of that, they don't truly understand it. He reminded everyone that players back then flew commercial, played brutal back-to-backs, and had no advanced recovery systems. There were no rest nights baked into the schedule, no sports science teams monitoring every movement, and no shortcuts. He also addressed Jordan's decision to leave basketball for baseball, putting heavy emphasis on the emotional weight behind it. Shaq reminded fans that Jordan had gone through a devastating family loss during that time, something that deeply shaped his mindset and choices. Laughing about that period in Shaq's eyes showed a lack of awareness and respect. From there, Shaq widened the scope. He defended the entire generation that came before, calling out what he saw as entitlement from today's stars. He name-dropped legends like Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, saying they laid the foundation that modern players now benefit from. According to Shaq, those pioneers deserved appreciation, not jokes. In interviews and online posts, Shaq doubled down. He challenged the GOAT debate directly, arguing that the NBA in the 80s and 90s was a completely different beast. The game was more physical, defensive contact was brutal, and hard fouls didn't automatically lead to whistles or reviews. Shaq claimed many of today's stars wouldn't survive that environment, mentally or physically. This wasn't just a disagreement. Shaq positioned himself as a defender of legacy, standing guard over Michael Jordan's name and the era that shaped the NBA's identity. Fans immediately split down the middle. Some backed Shaq fully, saying LeBron and KD crossed a line by laughing about a legend's career, especially a period tied to deep personal pain. To them, Jordan isn't just another former player, he's basketball royalty. Others pushed back. They argued LeBron and KD were simply discussing how the league has evolved, not attacking Jordan personally. The laughter, they said, was about contrast between eras, not disrespect. Social media exploded with debates, some praising Shaq for keeping history straight, others accusing him of old-school bias. Now the basketball world is divided again. Some see Shaq as protecting the soul of the game. Others think he's struggling to accept change. One thing's clear, though, this clash goes way beyond a podcast moment. It's about legacy, respect, and who gets to define basketball history going forward. And this conversation, it's far from over. This situation represents a much bigger tension inside basketball itself. It's old school versus new school, and neither side is backing down. The older generation believes some things in the game should stay sacred, untouchable, and respected at all costs. The newer generation believes the game belongs to whoever is playing it right now, not to history. And here's the key part. This wasn't the first time Shaquille O'Neal and Kevin Durant clashed. Their tension goes way back, and the history between them is already loaded. The most explosive moment came all the way back in February 2017, and surprisingly, it didn't even start with KD or Shaq directly. It started with JaVale McGee, who was playing center for the Golden State Warriors at the time. McGee had spent years being featured on Shaq's TNT segment, Shaqtin' a Fool, a recurring highlight reel of on-court mistakes. Missed dunks, bad defensive reads, awkward falls, moments that made fans laugh. McGee showed up on that segment over and over again, and eventually it stopped feeling like jokes to the people around him.
Without hurting people's feelings, when people get sensitive. KD says the other day, his name should be discussed in the greatest of all time conversation. What has he not done? Agree or disagree?
So you got to be specific. You can't just say greatest of.
No, the GOAT. Like they always talk about LeBron,
I think
Michael Jordan. I throw in Kobe. Some people don't. I threw in Steph Curry the other day. No, he's saying his name should be in that.
I think KD is the GOAT on this for 7 foot, 2 guard.
No. Is he one of the greatest of all time? Yes.
One of the greatest 7. There's no.
No.
Seen another KD.
Should he be in that conversation? What you think?
I think so. And I think so. Kevin Durant is a transcendent talent, bro. Like we've never seen
this before.
We've never seen anybody like KD. And I said this the other day on something else I was doing.
Kevin Durant watched his teammate get dragged week after week. To KD, it looked less like comedy and more like straight-up humiliation. So he finally snapped back publicly, calling Shaq childish and accusing him of using his media power to clown a player who was simply trying to survive in the league. KD didn't tiptoe around it either. He took the fight straight to social media, calling out a Hall of Famer by name. He accused Shaq of chasing attention and crossing the line, and the tone shocked fans everywhere. Then Durant escalated things even further. He questioned Shaq's basketball skill, saying Shaq relied mostly on size and power rather than refined technique. He pointed to Shaq's well-known free throw struggles and argued that Shaq never had to evolve his game the way modern players do. That statement hit like a bomb. Shaq is one of the most dominant centers the league has ever seen. 4 championships, 3 straight finals MVPs. To say he had no skill was a direct hit at his legacy, and Shaq took it personally. Shaq fired back hard. He told KD to stay quiet until he won a championship ring, because at that moment, Durant had none. In Shaq's eyes, rings meant authority, and without them, KD's opinion didn't count. Shaq doubled down, listing his 4 titles and accusing modern stars of being soft and overly sensitive. This became a pattern in Shaq's commentary, criticizing today's players for not handling pressure or criticism the way past generations did. The exchange went viral instantly. The situation got so heated that Warriors head coach Steve Kerr was asked about it in press conferences. Kerr, who had won championships alongside Michael Jordan, didn't hold back either. Kerr defended his player and called Shaq's behavior unprofessional, saying that public ridicule from a media figure crossed a line. KD echoed that stance, making it clear he wasn't afraid of Shaq's legacy or platform. Durant said if he had something to say, he was going to say it no matter who was on the other side. Shaq, meanwhile, refused to back down, expanding his criticism beyond KD and painting the entire modern era as weaker than the past. This wasn't just trash talk anymore, it became a full-on generational battle about toughness, respect, and who really gets to define greatness in the NBA. This feud perfectly exposed the deeper generational split inside basketball. Shaquille O'Neal stood for the old-school mindset where physical dominance, toughness, and championships defined greatness. Kevin Durant represented the modern game built on skill, versatility, and pure individual ability. 2 philosophies, 2 eras, and 0 middle ground. Shaq believed rings and power were the final word. Durant believed talent, adaptability, and skill should matter just as much. That tension didn't explode right away. It simmered quietly through the season, waiting. And here's the irony nobody can ignore. Just months after Shaq publicly told KD to win a championship before speaking, Durant did exactly that. In June 2017, the Golden State Warriors defeated the Cleveland Cavaliers in the NBA Finals, and Durant walked away as Finals MVP. He earned the exact credential Shaq said he was missing. That ring shut down some critics instantly, but it didn't end the tension between Shaq and KD, not even close. Their dynamic had already been set, clash, cool off, then clash again. The 2017 JaVale McGee drama created a pattern that never fully disappeared. Over the years, the beef kept resurfacing at random moments. In January 2023, another flare-up hit social media after Shaq dismissed Lakers forward Rui Hachimura during a TNT broadcast, saying he didn't even know who he was. This came right after Hachimura put together a strong performance following his trade to the Los Angeles Lakers.
The timing was bad when he went to Golden State. Right after that, right after losing to them, then going to them. I think any other year in his career, he'd go there. It's not looked at as that particular thing. You know what I'm saying? And it's such a sensitive subject with people in basketball and basketball debates, but Kevin Durant is absolutely one of the best players that we've seen of all.
So he's one of two of the most prolific, dominant scorers ever. And I think, like you said, to piggyback on what you said, because you lose to Golden State and then you go join them and win championship, I think that tarnishes it. Now, if he can win one where he's the bus driver, like Charles would say, I think we would definitely have to put him in that conversation. But right now, I don't really have enough. Yeah, but I think people were upset because, especially guys that we play this game. If we knew that was acceptable, probably a lot of us would have done it. If I knew that was acceptable, I would have just went to Chicago. If I knew that was acceptable, I would.
Durant, then with the Brooklyn Nets, didn't let that slide. He subtweeted Shaq, suggesting the Hall of Famer was out of touch with the modern NBA. To KD, it looked wild that a national analyst could shrug off a current rotation player like that. Shaq fired back fast and aggressive. The exchange escalated into personal jabs, with Shaq mocking KD's career decisions and sensitivity. KD responded by clowning Shaq's online behavior, joking about age and how older players move on the internet. Somehow, rapper J. Cole even got name-dropped, adding to the chaos and randomness of the argument. The whole thing felt messy and unnecessary. Fans mostly shook their heads, pointing out that neither side gained anything. It just reminded everyone that these two had unresolved tension that could spark up at any moment. That wasn't even the only flare-up around that time. In June 2022, during KD's public fallout with former teammate Draymond Green over podcast comments, Shaq jumped into the conversation again. Green had questioned Durant's role on the Warriors' championship teams, and Shaq sided with him. This tied directly into Shaq's favorite argument, the bus rider versus bus driver debate. Shaq repeatedly claimed Durant's titles were less impressive because he joined a team that had already won without him. In Shaq's view, KD wasn't steering the bus, he was just riding along. Durant pushed back hard. He accused Shaq of hating on the modern NBA and being bitter about player empowerment. KD suggested Shaq wasn't an objective analyst, but someone struggling to accept how much control today's stars have over their careers. Despite all the friction, the relationship hasn't been purely hostile. In March 2024, when KD passed Shaq on the NBA's all-time scoring list, moving Shaq to 9th, Shaq congratulated him publicly. Of course, he couldn't resist adding a challenge, telling Durant to go chase the top spot held by LeBron James. Some fans saw genuine respect in that moment. Others saw passive-aggressive energy wrapped in praise. The debate raged again. Was Shaq celebrating KD or reminding him there was still more to prove? Then came another twist. In November 2024, during Durant's feud with ESPN's Stephen A. Smith over leadership criticism, Shaq surprisingly defended KD. He told Smith to put respect on Durant's name and acknowledge his accomplishments. When criticism came from the outside, Shaq stepped in. That moment showed just how complicated this relationship really is. Rivalry, respect, ego, and history all tangled together, and that's exactly why every new clash between them keeps pulling the entire basketball world back into the debate. They could go at each other one day and defend each other the next, and that whiplash is exactly what makes this feud so volatile. At the center of the tension between Shaquille O'Neal and Kevin Durant is one massive question that never goes away. Where does KD actually belong in basketball history? The GOAT debate has dominated basketball conversations for decades, and Shaq has never been shy about where he draws the line. Across interviews, podcasts, and broadcasts, Shaq has laid out his hierarchy loud and clear. For him, the top spot belongs to Michael Jordan. No debate. Kobe Bryant is firmly in the conversation, even if opinions differ. LeBron James gets mentioned by many, and Stephen Curry earned his place through championships and impact. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has the scoring record and the rings to back it up. But Kevin Durant? Shaq puts him somewhere else entirely. Shaq doesn't deny KD's greatness. Not even close, but he deliberately places him outside the top tier. In Shaq's framework, being one of the greatest is not the same as being discussed among the greatest. That distinction matters, and Shaq draws it on purpose. Supporters of Durant fire back with one simple point. KD is different. At nearly 7 feet tall, he moves like a guard. His shooting touch, ball handling, and scoring versatility at that size are almost unheard of. From a pure talent standpoint, Durant represents something the league had never really seen before he arrived, and that alone puts him in rare air. But everything keeps circling back to one decision. In 2016, Durant's Oklahoma City Thunder held a 3-1 lead over the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals. They dropped 3 straight games, and weeks later, Durant signed with the very team that had just eliminated him. That moment still hangs over his legacy like a shadow. Shaq has openly compared Durant's situation to his own. He admits he doesn't place himself in the ultimate GOAT conversation either. Shaq sees himself as one of the most physically dominant players ever, not the definitive greatest. In his view, KD occupies a similar adjacent space, one of the most skilled scorers the game has ever seen, but not spoken of in the same breath as Jordan. That's where the bus driver versus bus rider idea comes in. According to Shaq, if Durant were to win a championship as the unquestioned leader of his own team, not by joining a ready-made dynasty, his case would instantly get stronger. Durant's personality only added fuel to the fire. Unlike stars who built cozy relationships with fans and media, KD stayed guarded. He engaged online, sometimes aggressively, but rarely showed much beyond basketball. That distance made it easier for critics to define his legacy on their terms, not his. Shaq framed Durant's Warriors move as breaking an unwritten rule from older generations. Back then, players believed you had to build something, not jump into something already built. Durant flipped that thinking completely. He chose the smartest path to winning regardless of how it looked.
It's crazy. You were 10 years old in 97, 98, the last run with Phil Jackson and MJ. What do you remember growing up in PG County about this?
I mean, Jordan was everything. You know, he was the standard. He was what you strive to be as a basketball player. I mean, obviously the shoes, the jersey sales, the commercials, all of that stuff was constant. But when you watch the play and your eyes were always glued to the TV, glued to him.
He has that line, win at all costs, right?
Yeah.
When I say that, how does that translate to Kevin Durant?
Well, anything, you know, coach needs you to do it on the floor. Anything, you know, you got to be prepared for any situation. I think MJ was always prepared, no matter if he had to hit the game-winning shot, make the game-winning, assist, get a steal, get a block shot. I think he was always prepared for every moment. So I tend to watch that because you only hear about your airness and Air Jordan, but to see the attention to detail to fundamentals was something that stood out the most, especially as I got older and started to watch more. And I started to realize what the fundamentals of the game really means. But you get just amazed at his athleticism, but to see the attention to the footwork, you know, his body placement on his shots, you know, when time and score, everything, it was just perfect.
And here's where things get interesting. Despite Shaq positioning himself as a defender of Jordan's legacy, Durant has never dismissed Michael Jordan at all. In fact, KD has spoken repeatedly about how deeply he respects Jordan. In a filmed conversation for The Boardroom, Durant reflected on growing up in Prince George's County, Maryland, during Jordan's final championship run. Like millions of kids in the 1990s, Durant watched Jordan dominate the league. The Bulls dynasty wasn't just entertainment to him, it was a blueprint. Jordan wasn't just a star, he was the standard. As Durant matured, his respect only deepened. What once looked like raw dominance revealed layers of leadership, preparation, and control. Durant studied Jordan's film carefully, not casually. He noticed details most fans miss, like Jordan's shooting mechanics and consistency. KD pointed out how often Jordan's shots dropped clean through the net, a sign of perfect fundamentals. That admiration complicates Shaq's criticism. Durant isn't mocking history, he's studying it. And that tension between respect, legacy, and modern freedom is exactly why this debate refuses to die. What stood out to Kevin Durant more than anything was the footwork. Michael Jordan's ability to create space was surgical. He positioned his body at angles defenders simply couldn't reach, and none of it was accidental. It came from endless hours of refinement and obsessive repetition. Durant looked past the highlight moments and focused on the work underneath. He saw the discipline, the precision, and the attention to detail that made Jordan unstoppable. Those moves weren't flashy for show, they were efficient, calculated, and ruthless. KD also pointed to Phil Jackson and the triangle offense as a major factor in expanding Jordan's game. Early on, Jordan was a pure scorer who created almost everything himself. The system forced him into structure, and ironically, that made him even more dangerous. Jordan learned how to dominate without always having the ball. He learned timing, spacing, and how to punish defenses by flowing within the offense instead of forcing every moment. Durant respected that evolution because it showed maturity, not ego. When asked to rate Jordan's skills individually, Durant's answers revealed just how closely he studied him. He gave Jordan the highest possible rating for ball handling, not because of flashy moves, but because of efficiency. Jordan wasted no motion. Every dribble had a purpose. Durant gave Jordan the same top marks on defense. He highlighted Jordan's ability to guard multiple positions, anticipate passing lanes, and create chaos without gambling recklessly. While many fans focus only on scoring, KD emphasized that defense was a core pillar of Jordan's greatness. And here's the part that surprised a lot of people. When asked to choose a defining Jordan moment, Durant didn't pick a finals shot or a championship run. He chose Jordan's time with the Washington Wizards, a period many fans love to mock. For Durant, that era mattered deeply. Growing up in the DC area, that was his chance to see his hero in person. Jordan wasn't just a myth on TV anymore. He was real, human, and right there in his hometown. That experience made the legend tangible and personal. Those comments complicate the version of Durant that critics often paint. This isn't someone dismissing history. This is someone who studied it closely, absorbed it, and built his own game from it. That's where the disconnect between Durant and Shaquille O'Neal really lives. Shaq believes the new generation doesn't properly respect the old guard. Durant insists he does, even if he feels comfortable joking about parts of the past. And maybe both things can be true at the same time. Durant can deeply admire Michael Jordan while still speaking casually about history. Shaq can genuinely respect Durant's talent while believing certain lines shouldn't be crossed. That tension between perception and reality keeps this feud alive. Basketball legacy is never simple. It's emotional, personal, and constantly debated. That's why these conversations never really end. So what do you think? Was KD just joking? Or did he cross a line when it comes to Michael Jordan? And should legends like Shaq step in to police the culture of the game? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, subscribe, and click the next video on your screen for more NBA stories just like this.